Money FM 89.3, best of weekends.
Paul Tan, the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the National Arts Council, is joining us now to talk more about that. Paul, welcome to Weekend Morning. So glad to have you with us today.
Morning, Glenn. Good to see you. I mean, the last time we chatted, we didn't get to see each other, face to face. So now I'm glad I get to see your face.
Thank you. I hope it's not too disappointing for you, but it is nice to have, the more we can have a physical contact, even if it's visual contact, the better, right?
It's more personable for sure.
It sure is. Paul, thanks for coming on. And, you have done so much with the Singapore Writers Festival, with working in the arts community over the years. And now the ARH Co-Working Space. Tell us about that. First of all, how long has it been around, and what's its mission?
Yeah, well, the Arts Resource Hub, I mean, we all love our acronyms, ARH, was set up actually fairly recently. We only opened them last year, early this year, sorry. The web, first, let me take a step back. There's actually, the Arts Resource Hub is first and foremost a resource, right? So the resource has a very strong online component where we've put in lots of useful information from advising freelancers on how to look at their legal contracts, for them to think about training, for them to do their financial planning. Now, as part of the Resource Hub, which is an online hub, which everyone can go and have a look and check it out, there is there are physical spaces as well, which we opened earlier this year. So all of these plans were all pre-COVID, right? They were all a recognition that the art scene, perhaps more so than other sectors, is particularly skewed towards freelancers. Many practitioners, both in front of stage and backstage, people who are working behind the scenes in the visual arts gallery. I think many of the practitioners like the flexibility. They like the ability to move from gig to gig and have that autonomy, which also means they manage their own time well, right? So the physical spaces that we have, the two of them, one is at the Goodman Arts Centre, that's in Mountbatten, and the other one is Stamford Arts Centre downtown, right? And they are physical space, as you mentioned, they're low cost. I mean, it's comfortable, but it's not meant to be, overly furnished, right? And it's got some basic tea and coffee. And we opened this as a kind of a co-working space, and actually for registered subscribers of the Arts Resource Hub is actually free, right? So this was all planned pre-COVID. The thinking then was that freelancers need a place to kind of discuss things. They often don't have your own premises, right? So it's good for them to come and meet and also interact with other freelancers as well. So that was the thinking. Yeah. And those spaces have been reopened. Yeah.
And you mentioned that sometimes there are services available there if you need somebody to look over a contract for you. And how does that work? Do people have to make appointments in advance, or are there just people hanging around kind of waiting to help with these things?
I mean, the two spaces are not very large spaces. They're just, imagine like two very large classrooms, right? With some basic facilities like printing. And it's currently manned. We have someone, because of the COVID and the need for safety measures. So you do have to pre-register for use of the space. And
just for social distancing and that sort of thing.
And all those important safety measures.
Yeah.
In terms of help, I mean, what we've been doing in the last 9 months, it's actually actively programmed. So again, because of COVID, a lot of the program has been, in fact, all of the programs have been digital. So whether it's a digital clinic or whether we've been holding whether they are webinars, we've been making sure that the Arts Resource Hub continues to provide useful information, to pump out useful information, whether it's helping freelancers navigate the grants. We've done some clinics, but these are virtual, right? We also encourage them to just go browse the site, because the site is chock full of useful information. Like I mentioned, for example, like legal templates. We actually suggest that, to protect themselves, freelancers can look at these are the best practice. So when there's someone who is out to commission a job, and that even includes the Arts Council itself, which actually commissions programs and arts initiatives, that you kind of understand your own kind of rights as a freelancer.
Yeah.
So these are the things that we're putting out to make it useful to the arts community.
Very interesting. We're talking with Paul Tan, the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the National Arts Council, about the reopening of the Arts Resource Hub, the ARH, as they call it, co-working spaces. One is at Goodman, and the other one's in town. Where is that one in town again? I know where Goodman
It's
is.
along Middle Road, Stamford Art Centre. It's near it's along Waterloo Street. Yeah. Junction of Waterloo Street and Middle Road.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I know exactly. Yeah. So that's right in the center of town, kind of by Seligee and over in that area. So that's very convenient for a lot of folks as well. When you look at the need right now for the freelancers, I mean, there has been National Arts Council and government money that has gone out in different types of grants and things like that. Is that money, how is that pot of money looking right now? Has it been used up? Is there still cash out there available for freelancers, for people in the arts to tap into for projects?
Okay, of course, it's quite a complex piece, and I can spend an hour talking about it. But broadly, there is...
Give it to us in 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'll try. Yeah. Basically, there's support at the company level, and that's done centrally. Everyone would have heard of the Job Support Scheme.
Right.
So that is administered centrally, and it goes to the companies, and it supports some of their wage bills. And for the arts and culture sector, there was an enhanced Job Support Scheme. That means the quantum was higher. So that's one thing to register. That's done centrally through the Ministry of Finance. Now, the Culture Ministry and NAC was given a separate pot to think about how to keep the level of activity going and how to sustain livelihoods, including for freelancers.
Yeah.
So that fund is still being drawn down, and a lot of it has gone into generating activity and projects through the grants. We had a digital presentation grant, which helped people put up stuff digitally. We also had grants to help boost capability. Capability is always a very big thing in Singapore, right? Boosting skills, upgrading, etc. So through that funding, through the grants, we've been able to create easily over 10,000 opportunities, both in terms of presentation, in terms of digital presentations, as well as training opportunities. And I think we
10,000.
supported.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's opportunity. So they're all gigs of sorts, right? Either learning gigs or presenting gigs. That's one way of framing it. And on top of the companies that we support, it also supports freelancers. Since we're talking about freelancers today, about 4,000 freelancers through all this funding, right? Wow. So that continues to happen because the grants have closed, but the activities are for the next couple of months, right? All the way until the end of the FY, which will be in March next year.
So there is still time to get out there if somebody wants to put in for a grant.
Well, the grants have closed, but there are other grants you can tap on. So go visit the National Arts Council site. There are the regular grants. Also, we are encouraging people to think of hybrid now that you can have shows in the physical space, but also just keep in mind about digital, because that hybridity is useful, especially if, touch wood, things take a turn for the not so good, and then we have to pivot back to digital. Then at least we have more of the arts community that can kind of navigate the complexities of the digital space.
Yeah. We've been on the show here over the months since February, March. We've been talking quite a lot and quite often about the arts. We've had yourself on before, and we talked with Pandemonium and with Wild Rice and SRT and, of course, music establishments as well. There are so many people involved in this ecosystem. Has the National Arts Council quantified the value of this? Because my sense is that many people, perhaps in the business world, don't understand just how big the arts coffers, the arts community is, and how much it adds into the economy here in Singapore every year. It's a massive amount, is it not?
Well, it's actually more significant than I think many people think. That's for sure. But the interesting thing, and it's an interesting challenge for us, and actually that kind of points to the kind of work that NAC has to do together with the other government agencies, which is to better size the economic value add. And that is something that's work going on. We first need to get a good handle on how big the sector is in terms of employment, right?
Right.
And one of the challenges is because of the gig economy, because it kind of overlaps with other sectors like the commercial event sectors. So if you are someone who is a lighting designer, you could design for both theatre production, but also a big MICE event.
Sure.
Right. So that's one challenge, but work is being done to try and size that employment. And then, of course, the economic value, right? That's work going on. I would like to think that beyond the numbers, beyond the actual economic contribution, there's something a little bit more qualitative as well, which is about quality of life, right? It's really about making Singapore a good place for Singaporeans to live, work, and play. We've all heard that phrase before, right? And even in terms of expatriates who come to work to Singapore and find Singapore a good place to invest, or a place to contribute their skills. I think the arts and culture have got a very critical aspect, to try and give a more holistic view of what life in Singapore is like. And then there's a final element, which is also very hard to quantify, which is about unlocking creativity in all of us. I think when we think about it, every one of us can potentially be creative, and that could be triggered by engaging or consuming the arts. And that creativity you bring with you, whether you're an engineer or an accountant, it helps you see things in a different way. And to all of us at NEC, I mean, we all get that, right? So how do I get more people to think about how the arts can unlock the creativity in themselves?
Yeah, talking with Paul Tan, the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the National Arts Council. Paul, when we get to it, do you have an understanding of what Phase 3 might look like for the arts in Singapore? I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse here, but are we looking at potentially opening up, going from this hybrid model that we're in now to further opening of venues and experiences for people? What do we know about what Phase 3 might look like?
We like to make a joke that those kind of questions are kind of above my pay grade.
And your crystal ball is a little foggy right now, right?
Yeah. I mean, I will hazard a response. And, in terms of where we are going direction-wise, right, we are gradually opening. Yeah. For your listeners who may not know already, or the whole sector, that we can open, they're all permitted to open at for shows in permitted venues at 100 pax. And as we know, some groups have already done it. We have got Ting Yi Music Troupe, we have SRT and Wild Rise, all staging either theatre shows or concerts in the last couple of weeks. Yeah. And we have already asked people, we've invited the arts community to safely think about going up to 250 if their venues permit, right? If the venues permit the expansion to 250 with certain kind of criteria in terms of safety. But we're asking them to write into us to indicate interest. So direction-wise, we're moving towards opening up safely. And I think 250 is the next kind of milestone we want to cross. Yeah. There are also, so that's one pool of kind of pilots to see whether we can go up to 250 safely. There's another pilot going up to 500, which is even more select. And we're thinking of trying to, there's work going on working with other agencies, because this whole piece is entirely interagency. We have to talk to we've made new friends at the health ministry, let's put it that way, right? To understand how we're doing this as a nation, right? So the other pilot that I think is really interesting is we're going to try to go up to 500, but with pre-event testing, which means before you go for the show, you either go for a quick swab, right? Either at the premise itself, if the premise can do it, do a quick test, or you do it at a clinic 24 hours before the show, right? So that's the next pilot that we're trying to do over the next 2 months, at least to give ourselves the assurance that, we can go up to an even larger number. And if the test can be conducted swiftly, of course, we need to think about what how the cost structures work, because with reduced capacities, right? That's one real business consideration in terms of ticket sales, as well as the cost of the test itself. So all this have to be mapped out moving ahead. But directionally, that's where we're heading.
Well, we're all looking for that rapid test to be able to be implemented quickly at a lot of different venues. That's going to be a game changer for, I think, many industries here, not the least of which would be travel and arts included in that. Paul, let's go right back to the ARH real quick. Just for folks that are interested, freelancers, who exactly is it open to, and how do they figure out if it's for them, and how to make a reservation to go and use one of these co-working spaces?
The first port of call is to go visit the Arts Resource Hub, right? So it's an online portal, so you can subscribe. And actually, it's open to anyone based on their job description. So you tell us what you do. And a subscriber, you are entitled to use the space free, right? But you do have to register. So the website has all the information. Sure. I do want to put a cautionary note that, especially in a time like this, in a pandemic season like this, that if you can do your work virtually and you do not need to use the hub, you can also do that. Sure. We encourage you to do that. The hub is for people who feel that they need to meet face to face. Perhaps they're new collaborators, or perhaps they just need to get away from home, which is noisy, and to find a quiet space to put on their headphones and do some work. So that would be the cautionary note I would put out. But go visit the website because it's chock full of information. It's beyond the 2 physical spaces, which of course are important to enabling tools. But the website is crammed full of useful information for people who are already in the industry, whether you are an actor, whether you're a backstage person, whether you're a visual arts gallery worker, whether even writers, right? If you're a freelance writer like Neil Humphreys, you can be a member, right? That you can tap on all the programming, the virtual programming that we put out. Yeah. Well, we do need for those who take part in some of the clinics to give us to register via the SingPass. So that's one thing, because the service is for Singaporeans and PRs.
Yep.
And I think as we move ahead, that's the direction we're going. Yeah.
Well, I think many of us have had a cement drill or two in our neighbor's flat that we wish wasn't there when we're trying to get work done. So perhaps going to the ARH at an appropriate time would be a great place to get away from the noise that often can accompany working from home. So,
for sure.
Yeah. Paul Tan, Deputy Chief Executive of the National Arts Council, thank you so much for being with us on Money FM today.
Thank you, Glenn.